Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. So, if you were given the choice or the option to adjust the Insect Glaive in the DLC, what would you change for the Insect Glaive? What would you remove? What would you add? I'm curious to hear your thoughts regarding this matter because I've seen so many posts on Reddit and sometimes on Discord where people talk about how difficult it is to use the Insect Glaive in the 10-star hunts or the endgame hunts, and sometimes the Insect Glaive feels lacking when it comes to defensive options like the input delay issues. So I'm curious to hear your opinions and your thoughts regarding this matter. And for me today, I'm going to talk about my wish list for the DLC when it comes to the Insect Glaive. Now, I'm going to structure this in a way that is short and straight to the point, but I'll try to just keep things as clear as possible. Now, the first problem, and I think most people will agree with me on this one, which is the input delay issue. I think this is the biggest problem for the Insect Glaive right now. If someone told me that you can only choose one thing, I'm going to choose this, right? This is the one thing I will choose. This is the one that I think is the biggest issue for the Insect Glaive at the moment. Maybe the offset is a close second, but this is the biggest problem for the Insect Glaive, which is the input delay, right? Because it makes the Insect Glaive feels sometimes unresponsive, sometimes laggy, and in the 10-star hunts where everything can two-shot you, sometimes having this problem with you is a recipe for disaster, right? And to make matters worse, the hitboxes sometimes are funny, and then you also have some of the attacks of the Insect Glaive being slow, and the long recovery animations, all those things factor in. And when you add the input delay on your dodges, you're just not gonna have a good time. So this is the first problem for me. This is the one that I really want them to fix more than anything in the Insect Glaive, more than anything in the DLC. This is the one that I want them to address. Now, the second aspect in my wish list that I want them to fix for the DLC, which is to improve upon our defensive options, other than the rolls and dodges. So the vault, for example, I do wish that the vault was influenced by evade window. It doesn't seem like it is. Some of the hitboxes are just crazy out there, and no matter how much and how high my evade window is, I still get hit even though I'm too far away from it. And you also have, there is also the backward dodge, where I think this one it has potential to be one of the best defensive options for the Insect Glaive, like the backwards vault. I think right now, if we say what is the best option defensively, I would say the backwards vault, where you vault backwards. Although I wish we can influence the direction, maybe go left or right. But the dodge slash, which is you perform a retreating dodge while attacking the monster, if this was influenced by evade window, I think it would have been one of the best defensive options for the Insect Glaive. So I do want them to fix, or maybe to make this one influenced by evade window. I do want the mid-air evade to be influenced by evade window, because that then at least, even though they won't really tweak the hitboxes, the least thing we can say is we've invested into evade window in the build, so we might as well get the benefit from it when we are in the air, right? So yeah, that's what I would say regarding the vaults and the backward dodge. Now, the third item is the offset. Now, this is where I have the big problem. Aside from the input delay, I think the Insect Glaive would have benefited more from having a perfect dodge comparing to an offset, which is crazy for me to say because I'm a big fan of the offset in general. And that's because the Insect Glaive offset is really bad. Like if you compare it to the greatsword, to the switch axe, to the hammer, it really lacks on every single department. It's one of the hardest offset to time, and it's also one of the least rewarding one to activate, right? So the timing is difficult, the offset is bad, it locks you on animation, it doesn't give you the option to cancel it. You are at the mercy of the monsters flinching next to you. Sometimes they would flinch close to you, which is good. Sometimes they would flinch away from you, and you just stuck there, doing the animation that you can't really cancel, hitting the air. And by the time the animation is done, the monsters are up and attacking you again. So this is the problem with the Insect Glaive offset, and that's just one half of it. The second half is the absence of the hyper armor the second time you activate the offset. And it's so unreliable, it's so inconsistent, because sometimes I would do the exact same move, or I would time the exact same offset and the exact same move, and I will not get flinched, and sometimes I will get flinched. And then you also have some other times where I would say maybe because it's a multiple hitbox, maybe the monster have lingering hitbox in their attacks, maybe that's why I got flinched. And then I bring out the other weapons. I bring the switch axe because I think that's the second weapon that I'm more proficient with, and I do the same thing. I offset the same move, and I see that I have hyper armor. So the Insect Glaive, the absence of hyper armor on the second time of the offset activation is also one of the reasons why I think the Insect Glaive offset is bad. Now, if I have the option to suggest something for the DLC, one, if they give us a perfect dodge, that would be amazing. But if they say no, you have to stick with the offset, then they have to give us two things. One, they have to give us the option to cancel out of the offset follow-up, like they gave the switch axe the option to cancel out of the sword counter. And then the second thing they have to give us is the hyper armor, right? If we are good enough to time the offsets, if we are good enough to land them consistently, we should not be punished for that. That's what I believe. So yeah, these are the two things that I would suggest for the Insect Glaive offset in the DLC. Now, offensively, I don't have many problems when it comes to the Insect Glaive offensively. I do feel like we are overly reliant on one move to carry out our damage, but then we are losing our buffs and then we have to get them back, so that downtime kind of makes up for it. But I do wish the other moves of the Insect Glaive were either fast or have less commitment windows or have, you know, less recovery window animations, because right now offensively the best thing to do for the Insect Glaive is the faster you get to your strong descending slash and to the rising spiral slash is the best option, right? You have to get to it as close as possible, as fast as possible, to do as much damage as possible, which isn't bad, but it kind of makes the weapon one-dimensional. It makes the weapon, you only have like 2 moves to do and then that's it. There is no variety in the combat. And if you say I want to play, you know, the Insect Glaive to its full kit, you're being punished because your moves are either too slow and they don't come out as fast as you want them to come out, and then they take too long to recover from it, and then sometimes you can cancel from it, which, you know, makes the weapon slow in a way, and it makes it, you know, not efficient basically, right? So in essence, what I want them to do when it comes to the Insect Glaive offensively is to go to look at the switch axe, copy paste everything they did for it, and then bring it to the Insect Glaive, right? Because they did not nerf the one move for the switch axe, in this case the full release slash, but they buffed everything else, so now people have more options when it comes to the combat, and I think that's what I want for the Insect Glaive offensively. And then finally, what I do want is for them to buff the aerial Insect Glaive. I think it struggles when you compare it to the grounded version of the Insect Glaive. It's day and night difference, and that's because of many reasons. You also have to consider the nerfs to critical eye, to agitator, which now means you have to invest into latent power, you have to invest into stamina skills, you have to invest into critical eye to have a decent build for the aerial Insect Glaive. So if at least the least thing they can do is buff its damage, so that, you know, at least if we sacrifice some offensive skills in our build, we can at least get more damage output by having, you know, the high base damage, right? So yeah, so these are my opinions when it comes to the Insect Glaive at the moment and what I would like to see for it in the DLC. I am really curious to hear your opinions, you know, to hear what's bothering you right now with the Insect Glaive, how it feels to use in the 10-star hunts, what would you change for it in the DLC, and yeah, let me know in the comment section. And I'm also trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and I can't do that without you, so consider hitting subscribe. And until I see you on the next one, peace.